to talk about issues of security in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and particularly as we're focusing on what happens now as Cuba changes in terms of the security relationships. And that's Commissioner Hardley Lewin. One of the things about Commissioner Lewin, he's our new police chief, and he always wants to emphasize that his role is operational. He's a chief operational law enforcement officer in our country. But he and I have been doing panels for going back some time now. I don't know if you remember, probably about 4 years ago. And we've been doing these panel sessions. But one of the things that intrigued me and certainly has endeared me to him is that not only does he respond favorably to invitations like these, but I think he actually enjoys it. He actually revels in the give and take, the thrust that engages us in the exchange of information. He has been to my class, and the cut and thrust that students, undergraduate students, classes of 200-300 students can give. He actually enjoyed that, and I'm sure he delights being here with us today. And I venture to say, I know, if I know him correctly, that he doesn't even have his cell phone on. That's because he's so primarily engaged and preoccupied with, focused with what's happening here now. If the commissioner will allow me, I probably want to just put to the group, not necessarily put to the commissioner, these concerns. My sense of this conference, and again, I should commend CaPRI, John Rapley and my colleagues, the two Kims and the student associates, student internships, who've put this day together, that I certainly commend them for this initiative. But if I understand correctly, what this is about, it's about dealing with change in the Caribbean. We've had a predictable relationship, Jamaica-Cuba, Cuba, the Caribbean, Cuba, the US, a very predictable and, shall we say, quote-unquote, stable relationship over the last 40 years. It was a relationship that was pretty much dictated by the US hegemonic interests. So whatever the US said pretty much dictated and determined the kind of relationship we had with Cuba. But globalization has in fact changed the whole American hegemonic situation. And in addition to that, there are some interesting internal changes going on in Cuba, certainly over the last 2 years. I remember some time ago and talking with Mr. Siaga. Mr. Siaga and I used to talk a lot. And one of the things he said was, general conversation, of course, that God help us if Cuba really opens up its tourism, So I don't know what Mr. Bartlett said last night. I missed that presentation. But I wonder that he might be wondering how God is going to help us with Cuba now opening in terms of tourism. We just had a discussion on the energy implications as relates to Cuba, but also of concern to us, more dismal, of course, is this matter of security. If Cuba, if the borders and the relationship between Cuba and Jamaica and the Caribbean becomes more fluid, more accessible, I think the thing that we're asking, that we're forced to consider, what are the implications for what's loosely called the security of our nation state, or the security of the two nation states. And security could mean things affecting migration, cross-border migration, immigration, irregular migration. Some years ago when I started this business of writing on deportations and deportees, people, some brothers in Jamaican brothers actually sitting in prison in Cuba doing hard time, long time, probably 15 to life, for drug convictions. And what they wanted to know, my work has been so far, continues to be, with deportations primarily from the US to Jamaica. What we know about deportees coming to Jamaica is that, it really is disruptive to their life, disruptive particularly to the family situations in the United States. So the impetus really has been, if there's a way for us not to have to come, not for us to be deported. With the Cuban, with the Jamaican brothers sitting in prison in Cuba, they wanted to know from me, man, how can we be deported? So different, a change in focus. And I'm presuming that there'll be more of these kinds of questions, particularly as it relates to issues of irregular migration. As a national security officer, issues of movement of arms between the two countries. What will this mean in terms of Cuba opening up? Human trafficking. These are just some of the concerns that we will be forced to examine in the next years as the relationship, the dynamics in Cuba changes. But Commissioner Lewin, you probably have some different kinds of concerns. Of course, as you stand here, because you are the chief of police, you can speak about whatever you'd like to speak. Commissioner Lewin.
Thank you, Professor Headley. You shouldn't give a man an open checkbook like that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm happy to be here and participating in this conference. I'm grateful to CaPRI and to the Woodrow Wilson International Center for, first of all, inviting me, and secondly, for promoting me from the rank of Major to Rear Admiral, all in one morning. And speaking of that, you know, some military persons can be extremely rank conscious. Some of you may know of Brigadier Dunstan Robinson, my predecessor as Chief of Staff, several times removed. And he would always say, "My name is Brigadier Dunstan Robinson." Robinson I got from my father. Dunstan, I think my mother named me. But Brigadier, I earned it. And you dare not say Mr. Robinson or any such thing, or you incur his wrath.